I feel honored and privileged to introduce today's speaker. I have known him for many years and had the honor to serve as the school counselor for his two children at Pembroke Elementary School. I needed really about 30 minutes to introduce this gentleman, but I was told by my commanding officer, Mr. Blue, you only had 3 minutes. And I said, well, I will look into that. So I went to Master Sergeant Chavis, and since he was the chief deacon, he said, yep, you will honor Mr. Blue's request. So. But I will limit my introduction. I will make my comments short. Lieutenant Colonel Matthew Scott has earned 6 titles before his name. He earned his first title as Mr. Matthew Scott when he was born. He earned the second title as Dr. Matthew Scott, J.D., when he went to the University of Wisconsin and received his law degree, which was a Juris Doctorate degree. His third title was Attorney Matthew Scott. His other title was Judge Matthew Scott, so just make sure if you have a court date, you don't want to go before this fella. Then he became the district attorney, the first Lumbee district attorney in the history of the Lumbee people. Today, I'm going to introduce him from the military standpoint. Reedy Branch, please welcome Lieutenant Colonel Matthew Scott, United States Army, who will give today's address.
I don't know about six titles. If there is 6, I'm still working on all 6. We're a work in progress. I believe all of us are, right? I wanted to thank y'all for having me here today. It's a great honor to stand before you and speak. It's also a greater honor to stand before you and speak in uniform. At this time, though, before I start and say anything, I'd like to acknowledge our veterans who are here. If you could please stand. Now, I would like to acknowledge a family member. If you are a person here in the audience and you have a family member who is serving or who has served in the United States military, can you please stand? And I think we should give you a hand of applause. It's always right to acknowledge veterans, but it's also equally as right to acknowledge family members. Because without those family members, a veteran or a military service member can't do their job when they're serving, and they can't live with the burden after they serve without family members being supportive. So I want to acknowledge you. I was reading a story today of a 10-year-old little boy. 10-year-old little boy whose father is a Green Beret in the United States Army. He's 10 years old. His father has been deployed 8 times and he's only 10. And to read that story of that young boy and that family and how that family's had to cope with those multiple deployments and how that family's had to cope and survive in that environment of a parent, a husband and parent, family member being gone is remarkable. And no matter what you may see in the news, what you may hear on TV stations about the state of our nation, the state of our community, that story of that 10-year-old boy, that story of that family only goes to show just how great our country is because of individuals like that service member and that family. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. I also want to acknowledge that I'm glad to look out and see great friends who are here. I have a great affection for your pastor here at Reedy Branch. I went to school with his brother, who was a friend of mine, and I've got to know your pastor through exercise, riding bicycles and swimming. I have been on a bicycle behind him many times, so I shouldn't say this, but I am. When I see him, I don't have to see his face to know it's him. I can see him from behind and know it's him, because I've seen it many, many times. But no, he is a great man and a great pastor and a great friend. I just want to tell you a little bit about my story on how I became a military service member, a veteran. I had no intentions on going to the Army, none. I had family members who had served, grandparents, uncles, father-in-law who have served. I appreciated service, but I didn't think that was my path, was to serve. I graduated college and went into law school, as was said, at University of Wisconsin-Madison. While in law school, had no intention to serve. I was starting my last year of law school when 9/11 happened. And my intentions went away. What I wanted to do went away. And I was called to serve. And so I did. And within a few months of graduating, I was at Fort Benning, Georgia, like so many others, learning how to either jump or fall out of an aircraft, depending on your perspective. I went from listening to professors asking me questions about law to having to listen to black hats at Fort Benning, Georgia, not speaking nicely to me, but yelling at me, but instilling and teaching me on the proper exit of an aircraft. Did not think I was going to be that, right? I served 8.5 years at Fort Bragg with the 18th Airborne Corps, and a year of that was in Iraq, where the theoretical became real. Spent a year there. I missed the birth of my firstborn son there. I went from 4 years of college, went through 4 years of college, 3 years of law school. That's 7 years of school outside of high school. But I got my education, my real education, through the United States military, the United States Army. That's where I found my education. It's where I not only learned leadership, but I saw it firsthand practiced day to day, day after day. I saw people put aside differences and work together for a common purpose and a common mission, no matter what race, religion, gender, or background they were. I saw firsthand what makes our nation great. Serving among, I was no shape, form, or fashion am I a hero at all. But I had the great honor and privilege in serving among what I would consider heroes on a daily basis. And you just don't see that often, right? People who lived by the Army values of loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. They were not empty words. Not empty words at all, but a way of conducting yourself and your lifestyle and living your life. It meant something. These are the individuals I saw daily and learned from daily. Now, my story is not the only one. It's not unique. It's one of many that have come from what I would call the post-9/11 generation of service members. I want to share with you two of those stories. Two individuals I'm going to share with you are individuals who entered service around a little bit before me, or around the same time as me, but who, through service, I gained a great appreciation for them and a friendship and a bond with them. One is a Major retired Rob McGovern. Now, Major McGovern graduated from Holy Cross University. After graduating from Holy Cross, he entered the NFL. He played about 6 seasons with the NFL. Unfortunately, he played some of that with the New England Patriots, and fortunately, he played some of that with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Rob, after his NFL career ended, Rob then went to law school and graduated law school, became an attorney. He became an attorney and then went to work and practice as a prosecutor in the Manhattan District Attorney's Office in New York City. He went to work one morning, and in the midst of a lot of a commotion, went outside, and when he went outside is when he saw the attack on the Twin Towers. Rob spent the next days and nights volunteering at the site, pulling bodies from the ash and the rubble. Rob volunteered to come on active duty and volunteered to deploy over the seas in defense of our country. Sacrifice. The other example I want to give you is a Major, renowned Lieutenant Colonel Tagashi Kagawa. We all called him TK because I just couldn't spend that giving that name every time. So we had to shorten it up, right? We called him TK. TK was not a United States citizen at all. Was not a United States citizen. He volunteered and signed up and volunteered to go to be 11 Bravo, an infantryman with the 82nd Airborne Division. Not as a citizen. He gained his citizenship through the United States Army. He then became an enlisted 11 Bravo, and then he went from that to being a JAG attorney, and now is serving honorably still on active duty, giving Bible studies wherever he's at, wherever he's stationed. In my opinion, a great American. Now, I could give more examples of men and women who have answered this call to serve a purpose greater than themselves. There are many out there. We just don't hear their stories enough. We hear a lot of negative. We don't hear these stories enough. More than 3 million people have stepped forward and joined the ranks of the United States military since 9/11. You think 3 million, that's a lot. That makes up less than 1% of the United States population. Let's think about that. Since 9/11, less than 1% of the United States population is carrying the burden of the other 99%. Which also means that these individuals volunteered at a time where they knew that they would be going into harm's way. They stepped up in the face of adversity, answered the call, and with great sacrifice did extraordinary things and are still doing extraordinary things in the defense of our country. This generation, in my opinion, has earned the right to be placed in an exclusive group as one of the greatest generations. Now, it has been said that a soldier puts on the uniform, when he puts on a uniform, does not stop becoming a citizen. Therefore, when that soldier takes off their uniform from service to our nation, they should not stop being a citizen either, right? The United States military places a heavy burden of responsibility on service members at an early age. They have been trained to make life-changing decisions in heavy pressurized situations within a split second. How many people can claim to have more responsibility than a 21-year-old squad leader walking point in Afghanistan or Iraq? No one. At a time where we are starving for leadership and solutions in all aspects of our society, we should turn towards our veterans for answers. We should look towards our veterans because they have the leadership qualities and sense of duty to lead the way. We have veterans who are doctors, lawyers, teachers, law enforcement personnel. Our communities need veterans and their values and experience and leadership now more than ever before. Now, all too often when I think of veterans, I think of a story that President Ronald Reagan gave at his first inaugural address. President Reagan in his first inaugural address changed where his podium was and had been previously used by other presidents, so that when he gave his inaugural address, he could see the sloping slopes of Arlington National Cemetery. He could see those simple white crosses and simple white stars of David. And in that inaugural address, he told of a young man named Martin Treptow, who left his job in a barbershop in 1917 to join up with the 42nd Infantry Division in World War I. There on the front lines when he was killed, taking messages between battalions, they found on his body his diary. And in his diary, on the flyleaf of his diary, it read a statement that he put, and the title of it was "My Pledge." In it, he said, "America must win this war. Therefore, I will work, I will sacrifice, I will endure, I will fight cheerfully and do my utmost as if the issue of the whole struggle depends on me and me alone." For many veterans, our country was important enough to endure long separations from families, missing the birth of children, missing birthdays, holidays, living in jungles, living in deserts, losing limbs, and some, like Martin Treptow, losing their lives. While we set aside a day, Veterans Day, to honor the veterans, we should be thankful every day for their sacrifices and their dedication and their service. For it is because of their service that we live under a blanket of freedom and within the greatest nation on the earth. So God bless the veterans, their families. God bless the United States of America, and God bless you. Thank you.